He is Donald Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney. He acts as his current criminal defense attorney. And the reality is that he is there because Trump knows he can trust him. And Trump himself is listed in these files thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times. And so he wants to elevate into that position somebody that he knows is going to protect him, because that's Trump's only priority here.
There are moments in political debates where someone says something so arrogant that you just know they're about to get put in their place. And that's exactly what happens in this clip. A MAGA commentator tries to lecture Charles Blow on how he should do his job as a journalist, but Charles wasn't having any of it. He reminded her that he'd been working at the New York Times since the year she was born, and from that moment on, the debate completely shifted. But that's only part of the story. The panel also dives into Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Todd Blanche, questions surrounding the Epstein investigation, Trump's influence over the Department of Justice, and why some of his nominees are struggling to convince senators that they'll put the Constitution ahead of political loyalty. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. Let's get into it.
Survivors of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are deeply frustrated after meeting today with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who's trying to shore up support for his nomination as the nation's top prosecutor. Blanche cannot afford to lose a single Republican vote in the Judiciary Committee. But right now, two are currently holding out, including Senator Thom Tillis, who gave Blanche an ultimatum. He will vote for him only if he meets with survivors of Epstein. That crucial face-to-face actually happened just hours later. But neither side came away fully satisfied with that conversation.
It wasn't substantive. It was not productive. It just felt like, okay, well, we have a half hour, air your grievances. Great, I met with survivors. And it's like, that's not what we're asking for. We are asking for investigations. We have been it's so exhausting to keep saying the same things. Like, America doesn't want to hear the same things over and over again. We just want action, and we're not getting any action. And it's just after a day where you feel like maybe there was a small glimmer of hope, and now we've ticked the box and we're moving on.
Blanche said it, quote, wasn't all cordial because they want something I don't think I can give them, which is some form of justice. And I want to be able to give justice in the form of prosecutions. He added, maybe we could do a prosecution at some point. I don't know. This has been excruciating for survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and their families as they've kind of gone through this and been in some ways dragged through the mud as these releases came out. Names were not redacted. It's been a bit of a mess, to say the least. This meeting, though, has happened, and Thom Tillis had said, if you meet with them, you'll have my vote. So that leaves one person. What do you make of what's happened here?
I mean, I make that John Cornyn. Well, look, first of all, Thom Tillis should recognize that having Todd Blanche perform some perfunctory step just to basically check a box actually shows more contempt for the process than if he had just not met with them at all. But really, all this is, the whole time, has just been for show. Todd Blanche pretending that he's going to offer any semblance of justice is for show. He is Donald Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney. He acts as his current criminal defense attorney. And the reality is that he is there because Trump knows he can trust him. And Trump himself is listed in these files thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times. And so he wants to elevate into that position somebody that he knows is going to protect him, because that's Trump's only priority here.
What crime did Trump commit as it relates directly to Epstein? Because you're mentioning that he's in the files with the implication, of course, that a crime was committed, and yet for 4 years under the previous president, they didn't charge him with anything because there's actually no evidence to suggest that he committed a crime.
Have you seen the files?
Well, that's the thing.
I have seen a lot of the files.
So have you seen
them? Are you arguing that he committed a crime?
No, I asked you a question. Have you seen the files that everyone else in America wants to see?
I've seen the files that have been released.
You've seen the other 3 million files that
Not
are
every
still
single
suppressed?
file, no.
Do you think that maybe...
But you're suggesting that a crime was committed and that the Biden administration chose not to charge him,
I'm suggesting that we should probably see the other half of the files that haven't been released yet.
A position you only magically started to take in the last 2 years, not one during the Biden administration. How did the Merrick Garland meeting with the survivors go?
Let me explain that.
How did that meeting go?
While Joe Biden was in office, he prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's serving a 20-year prison sentence. So let me ask ask you.
So who should be?
So let me ask you.
Yeah.
Why did Todd Blanche meet with Ghislaine Maxwell and move her from the prison that she was in Florida to the low security prison in Texas?
Who should be charged next?
Well, tell you what. Once we see the files,
should be charged
once
next?
we see the files, I can let you know.
Of the files that you've seen so far.
Why are you defending? Why are you defending suppressing 3 million files?
You're only interested in this because you know that you can use this to try to go after the president.
Why are you protecting?
You guys didn't care about this.
Why are you protecting
for
pedophiles?
4 years for a reason.
Why are you
and
currently?
And then the second that anyone calls out the hypocrisy, you say you're defending pedophiles.
No,
you are not, because you're not. Why are you not demanding the release of these files? Who do you have to protect?
Of the files that have been released so far, who should be charged? Based on anyone yet?
Here is what
I'm asking that question. Have you seen anything in this particular?
So has the Trump administration released any files?
Of the files that you've seen, I'm simply asking.
And I'm going to answer.
Have you seen any evidence of a crime yet? Or is the argument that, well, we haven't seen all the files, so the additional files might have some crime there?
That's usually how it works.
Okay, so but you're saying to this point that there has not been. So I guess my
well, I don't know,
point
because
here
we've also had co-conspirator information redacted, and not to mention victim information exposed.
But is your argument that Merrick Garland and his DOJ, they saw evidence and they chose not to pursue?
They prosecuted
everybody else.
I was in the Merrick Garland DOJ, so why don't you allow me to answer this question? For any investigation, the U.S. Attorney's Office handles it. Mm-hmm. They believe that in the Trump administration that Jeffrey Epstein got a deal that he shouldn't have had, right? That is being investigated. I believe Congress is investigating it. I don't know if DOJ is looking at it. The issue with the survivors right now is that any time that there is new evidence, they should be getting that over to the FBI. They do not feel confident that the FBI is looking into it. When I was at the Justice Department, this issue was not raised for us from the Epstein survivors. And if it was raised, and actually if it was raised in one of 12 congressional hearings that Merrick Garland had, he would have absolutely met with these survivors. I will say the time that this whole thing was politicized was when Donald Trump felt that there were Democrats on some sort of Epstein list. He was not looking for justice. What he wanted is he wanted to embarrass them. And he wanted
I agree with you.
And he wanted to release that. And so did Pam Bondi, because Pam Bondi needed to do whatever he wanted.
I totally agree with that.
She had never seen
Pam
that list.
Bondi screwed this up from the beginning, and it was
saw that
disgusting.
list, it was unfortunate, but Donald Trump was all over it. There is the politics of this, and there is the investigation piece of it.
Sure.
And when there is new information, hold on. I'm not done. When there is new information, the FBI has the responsibility to look into it, whether or not they make charges. That is up to the FBI whether they have that evidence. But the survivors do not feel that they are being listened to by the FBI. And in that meeting, when they asked why was Ghislaine Maxwell put in a low security prison, Todd Blanche did not want to answer that question.
Can Todd Blanche talk about open investigations with them?
Todd Blanche,
no, he can't.
He can't talk about that. But don't you find it is very odd and it is unprecedented for a deputy attorney general to go meet with any sort of defendant at a jail? And what he wanted from Ghislaine Maxwell was he wanted Ghislaine Maxwell to say something to ensure that Donald Trump was innocent. And that is why he ended up putting her in a low security prison in Texas.
We've got to end this conversation.
We all agree the worst job in the world would be Donald Trump's attorney general.
Yes.
It'd be rough. It has been rough. Well, we've seen what happened with the prior attorney general. So we'll see what happens with Todd Blanche and if he is able to cross the line with one Republican sort of in the balance right now.
Todd Blanche and Jay Clayton were grilled on Capitol Hill today, trying to convince senators that they could be the next attorney general and the next director of national intelligence, respectively.
I do believe it should be independent of the president, and that the attorney general should serve the United States, be loyal to the Constitution, and therefore to the people. But it hasn't seemed that way in the time he's been the deputy attorney general, now the acting attorney general. He seems to continue to feel as if he's the president's lawyer. In so many ways, I have found his performance disappointing, to say the least. And I can give you some of the reasons for that. People he's gone after without much justification seem to be the president's perceived enemies, as if the president is saying, please prosecute the following people. And that's
Which
not...
he said it.
He
has, in fact, said that,
Well, he said it directly to Pam Bondi. He said, I want you to do this. But even since Blanche has been there, he seems to have continued that by continuing to go after James Comey for the seashells on the beach, which really doesn't sound like a criminal case to me, to going after certain other people, Tish James, John Brennan, a whole list of folks that seem to be the president's chosen enemy. So that's one thing I would fault him for. Secondly, this fake settlement, this weaponization fund and the immunity from prosecution on the tax audits, that was very troubling because the lawyers were not honest with the court. And that's a big problem. To tell the court there's no settlement when there is a settlement, that's not right. And that's been going on.
And he was caught in this today, Chair Michael, because he acknowledged that he kept saying it's dead, but he acknowledged that there's actually nothing in writing that says that it's dead. And there's nothing in writing that says that the president, who's the plaintiff, can't try to revive it by basically saying, we have a deal and it's written down here and you said you were going to create this fund. So, I mean, how is he to be believed? And it sounds like John Cornyn, who's going to be a pivotal vote, doesn't believe him.
Yeah, look, that's a point of consternation, I think, for the individuals that are tasked with ultimately getting him confirmed. I've been through this process before during the first Trump administration, having a nominee ultimately go before a committee, going through the murder board process, sitting with Dems, sitting with Republicans. And sometimes you do have to make concessions to get your person across the finish line. And I think listening to Manu's question to Senator Cornyn, they may have to go back and put this in writing in order to get his vote. Now, there's a couple ways this could work out. He could ultimately vote to get him out of committee, but then say, I'm not going to vote for him on the floor. And so I think if you're the Sherpa, you have to be very, very careful with not losing votes here. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I think you may have to put this thing in writing and say, look, this is over. This is a done deal.
Let me play. This is Jay Clayton. He's the guy that Trump has chosen to become the director of national intelligence. And obviously, Trump has been very clear. He wants that office to now be concerned with his 2020 election conspiracies and so on and so forth. This is Clayton answering questions about just a basic question of fact. Listen.
Who won the 2020
I'm not, this is like, I'm here to talk about my qualifications.
So he won the election.
He followed our process, had the most electoral votes, was declared the winner.
You refuse to answer a simple matter of fact about the 2020 election. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Then answer the question. Who won the 2020 election?
I have answered the question.
Answer it. What is your answer?
I've given you my answer.
What is your answer? You refuse to answer a basic question about who won a presidential election, but you asked to lead America's intelligence community?
Lydia, that's kind of embarrassing and maybe a little concerning if, intelligence is what he wants to have the job of doing. If he can't just state a fact, how can he do that other job?
I mean, he'd been asked, I think, 3 times at that point, and he did mince words. I would have liked him just to say yes and put an end to the discussion. But there's a lot of theatrics at these kind of hearings. John Ossoff got his soundbite, and Republicans kind of do the same thing. They love to ask, what is a woman? And Ketanji Brown Jackson couldn't answer. A lot of people still can't answer that question. So to me, it's theatrics. I do have to say, it's funny. I feel like we've sat at this table so many times and bashed Pam Bondi and Bill Pulte. And I kind of thought maybe people would be glad to have Jay Clayton and Todd Blanche, people who are eminently qualified for these jobs. And I think at the end of the day, it's a question of, do you want Jay Clayton or do you want Bill Pulte?
I actually think that the two people that were on the Hill today.
Wait, hold on. The two people now, but he couldn't do it.
The two people that were on the Hill today. I know you're trying to get a social media clip, Charles, but
do you know?
I think Savino is trying to talk. I know you're trying to get your social media clip for the gotcha. I answered your question already, but I'm also not here to answer to you. So
I'm happy that you told me that because I really appreciate. I'm sorry. I really appreciate you lecturing me about what I'm here to do because I'm here because Abby's show invited me here, and I have been in journalism for a very long time. In fact, I came to the New York Times the year that you were born. So I suggest that you choose a lane that is your own and stay in it, and don't lecture me because I won't be lectured by a child. Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So I think, to what Lydia was saying about these people being qualified, I would disagree that these are qualified individuals. I think what you saw on the Hill were two people that are quite grossly not qualified for the offices that they're seeking. and will do the bidding, the point that you're making, they're supposed to serve the American people. The Attorney General is meant to be a check on the administration, on the president, and they're meant to be objective and serving the public. And what you saw today, even when Todd Blanche slipped up and said, I'm the president's lawyer, you're actually not. You're actually the lawyer, the Attorney General for the public. And so I think what was displayed on Capitol Hill today, yes, you're right. There were theatrics, but they weren't wrong. I mean, facts are facts. I mean, who won the election in 2020? Is this is the sky blue? I mean, that is a very easy question that could have been answered, and yet there was a struggle. So I do think you have unqualified people up there. I do think the Senate ultimately probably rallies around these two individuals.
And I would say that on the Clayton issue, there are people who, our friend Ellie Honig in the last hour made a very compelling case that he is not qualified.
Yeah, but
he has no background. He has no background in intelligence.
But I think, look, I agree that the Attorney General should not curry favor for an individual, but adhere to the Constitution. I think most of us at the table would probably agree with that. But as it pertains to Todd, I think it's hard to say he's not qualified. I mean, the guy was at Southern District of New York, moved up through the ranks. Ellie Honig actually worked with him. The current Attorney General for New York, Alvin Bragg, worked with him as well. So it's okay to disagree. Yeah. I'm going to give you the room for that.
But
you have the right to do that.
But the Cornyn question is the real question here, because Cornyn has offered the same objection to all of them. Sure. Merrick, to Bundy, and now to Blanche, which is he's saying, I need to make sure that you can tell me that the DOJ will be independent of the president.
That's a legitimate question.
He is not there.
And
that's why I said, though, Charles,
I do have to make one important point.
Your Honor, go ahead.
This is a man who said that his administration and he are at war with the judiciary. That's a terrible thing to have said. Nobody should be at war with the judiciary. There are three co-equal branches of government, as we know. He also has called judges rogue. He has also criticized their opinions in a way that's not appropriate. So, and he and his people have been disrespectful and lied to the court such that there's no longer a presumption of regularity, which means that judges no longer believe DOJ lawyers. 16,000 people have left the DOJ since this man got here because they worked on cases that the president thinks were wrongly brought against him. So they were just summarily fired.
Let me just play another interaction. He was asked about his comments about the January 6th pardons by a senator. And I'm going to play what he said in the hearing today and what he actually said in that appearance that was being questioned about. Listen.
And you've bragged that bringing justice for violent rioters meant that every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted.
Almost everything the senator just said, and he's protected, he's allowed to lie, but almost everything he just said was absolutely false. I wasn't celebrating it, I was merely stating a fact.
If you look at what happened to the men and women convicted because of January 6th, by 5 p.m. on January 20th, every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted, okay? So when folks say you've done nothing, I say you have a very short memory.
I don't know. I mean, it does very much sound there that he's defending the decision to pardon these rioters.
That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, he tried to thread the needle today by saying that, that it was right to prosecute them, but also not condemning Trump's decision to pardon them. So how do you have it both ways? Either they did something that was horrible and they needed to be prosecuted and therefore punished for it, and also say, well, the president has the absolute right to do whatever he wants to do, and I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, but he did say to get some votes, he did say, and we'll look into the way the pardon power is exercised. So he kind of threw a bone, I thought.
That's don't believe
that. That and nothing are the same thing because there is nothing he can do about the way the pardon power is.
I understand that. And he said that. I said he was throwing a bone to try to get those last votes. Yeah.
So let me give you guys my thoughts, because there were a few things that really stood out to me in that discussion. First of all, can we talk about Charles Blow for a second? I absolutely loved the way he handled that exchange. Lydia Moynihan tried to tell him how he should conduct himself, and Charles shut that down immediately. The moment he reminded her that he'd been at the New York Times since the year she was born, you could tell exactly who had the experience in that conversation. But beyond that moment, I think there was a much bigger issue being discussed. The confirmation hearings for Todd Blanche and Jay Clayton raised an important question that every American should be asking. Who are these officials ultimately serving? In my opinion, the Attorney General's first loyalty should always be to the Constitution and the American people, not to any president, regardless of whether that president is Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or anyone else. That's why some of the questions asked during the hearing mattered so much. Take Jay Clayton, for example. He was asked a very straightforward question about the 2020 election, and instead of giving a direct answer immediately, the exchange turned into an unnecessary back and forth. Whether you're on the left or the right, public officials seeking positions of trust should be prepared to answer basic factual questions clearly and confidently. The other thing that stood out to me was the discussion surrounding the Epstein investigation. Whatever people believe about the case, one thing is obvious. The survivors want answers. They don't want symbolic meetings. They don't want political talking points. They want to know whether justice will actually be pursued. And that's something I think everyone can understand. At the end of the day, institutions only work when people believe they're operating independently and fairly. The moment people start believing politics comes before justice, confidence in those institutions begins to disappear. That's why these hearings matter. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think these nominees demonstrated that they can act independently? Or do you think the concerns raised during the hearing were justified? And if you're still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.